So happy to have you here. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, LA. Wow. Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited to chat.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
So, you have just added a new title to your name. How does it feel to be an author?
It's actually quite wild. It's always been a dream of mine to have my own book. I've grown up collecting art books and things like that. So to actually have one is quite surreal and just a testament to my journey and how far I've come. And now I feel like I have a tangible piece of like my own piece of history out in the world. So
that's how
really
I feel
cool.
having it, right? I mean, of course, I see your work, but to now have like a piece of it is really beautiful.
Thank you.
Do you think you'll do more?
More books?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I have to figure out what,
Okay.
but definitely this is definitely the first go around.
I mean, the theme for this one is pretty iconic, I would definitely say. So, how was it born to decide to make your entire book about a strip club?
Yeah. It's actually a funny story. So, the way I originally got the idea was back in 2017. My Aunt Charlotte came here to Houston for her 50th birthday. And it was her and then some of her friends. She lives in Cleveland, Ohio. So some of her friends from across, the country traveled down to Houston as well. And, my mom lives here. So I came from New York at the time. And we basically spent the whole weekend together celebrating her 50th birthday.
That sounds like a fun weekend.
It was very fun. My aunt's very fun.
She's
amazing, yeah. And so on Friday night, we ended up going out, and somehow the strip club came about, and we ended up at Onyx. So here we are walking into Onyx.
You with your 50-year-old aunt and her friends and your mom.
And my mom, yep. And I just remember walking in, and I remember, I think it may have been my mom's first time being in a club.
In general?
In general, in a strip club, I think so.
Oh, wow.
And she was looking around whoa. And I just remember I remember walking in, and I remember being mesmerized. I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. There was literally a woman on stage. She had the crystal heels. I mean, she was sparkling. It was beautiful. But I remember observing my aunt's friends and them kind of looking like they felt out of place, or just kind of, you could tell they were passing judgment in that moment,
Yeah.
And then we stayed at the club for a couple of hours. I feel like we left at 4 or 5 in the morning, which is kind of crazy.
That's normal for the strip club.
Absolutely. But yeah, over the course of us being there, one, I was just completely mesmerized. I thought the women that worked in the space were super beautiful. I love the way they commanded attention, the way they just worked the room. I love their confidence, their bravado, their sexiness. I just thought it was something really special. And then over time, I began to realize that my aunt's friends, they were warming up, they were having fun, They were talking to the girls. So I was wow, okay. They came around, know. And meanwhile, while they're enjoying having fun, I'm just looking at the room. I'm looking at the dancers, how they talk to the men, how they talk to each other. You could tell the moments who was new on the floor and who wasn't. The girls that were new were being watched over by other girls, Yeah. Which is really interesting, just observing the dynamic.
Kind of like a mentorship, dancers. A little bit.
Kind of, but in the club. Right. And I just thought it was a really interesting dynamic, and definitely something that was worthwhile being documented. Because, like I said, from what I saw, it was just beautiful to me. And so I told my family the next day, I think we were at brunch or something, and I told them, when I make it, I really want to go back and I want to shoot the ladies at Onyx. And then come 2020, the opportunity came when Photographiska approached me to do a solo exhibition at their museum in New York. And it was obviously before the pandemic. But
it's one of my favorite museums, by the way.
Yeah, it's so cool. They have some really phenomenal artwork and photography in there. So yeah, I remember going on a meeting with the museum director, and at first I thought she was just going to give me a tour, or just, I don't really know what I thought, but after she gave me a tour of the space, we sat down at the cafe, and she was like, so how do you feel about, doing your own exhibition here? And I was like, what, me? And she was like, yeah, we love your work. I love what you represent. I love your vibe. I think you will be a great addition to our museum.
Wow.
And so, she was like, do you have any ideas? And immediately Onyx popped up, and I just told her on the spot, and she was like, I love it, let's do it. And that's
just
how,
like that.
Wow. And that's kind of how it came about. And a year later, I ended up having the show in 2021, and then here we are in 2023 with the book.
Yeah. So this was like a 6-year goal in a way. Wow. Why do you feel like in that moment you're like, this is the first exhibition I want to do?
Like I said, it was like when she asked me, it was almost like that, wow, I made it moment, you know? And at the time, she also asked me if I would be interested in exhibiting work that I've already created. And I was like, no, I want to create something new. And I just felt like Onyx, you know, I think that Houston is such a special place for me. You know, I definitely regard it highly as like a second hometown. Yeah. And it's also a place where, you know, I discovered my love for like photography and things like that. So I feel like doing an exhibition around Onyx only felt right because it brings it back to Houston. But then also it highlights these beautiful Black women that work in this space that are often overlooked by society in many ways, or, you know, people pass judgment on them. I just really wanted to capture the women in such a beautiful way. So it was like Onyx, and they were totally into it and let me do my thing.
Yeah, I know. I feel like you definitely did capture the women in such a beautiful way where you could see everything that you described, their power, their beauty, just the way that they command the stage, and anybody that's looking at them, that's definitely apparent in the book for sure. Something that I was wondering about, were there any fears with starting this project? Because, I mean, you have to start from the ground up, really.
Yeah, definitely a few fears going in. I think the main fear, I'd have to say would probably be the fear of rejection. I think when you go and you have these huge ideas, you know, there's a part of you that's like, hell yeah, you're gonna do it, you're gonna get it done. But then there's a part of you that's like, okay, what if something goes wrong? Or what if the club says no? Or what if the girls don't like me, you know? So that was definitely something. Another aspect that I think was kind of fearful was just after I overcame that and obviously was at the club, I think the other fear was just approaching the girls. You know, I'm very, you know me, I'm very shy and timid and quiet. So being in that sort of environment, although I had an admiration for it, it's like out of my element completely. But it all turned out so well. Like everyone there was very welcoming. It was almost like a family environment. And most of the women that I approached to photograph, you know, or to get their consent, they were like, hell yeah, let's do it. I mean, what do you want me to do? I was like, nothing. I'll just find
just
you, you know, just be you, and I'll capture when I see it. So it all worked out.
Yeah, definitely. How did you feel like you had to do any sort of work to overcome these fears that you were just kind of having going into it?
I think, no, not necessarily. I mean, if anything, I just had to go for it. And I feel like my whole life, especially considering like my creative career, has really just been taking that risk and just going for it. So it was like the same thing, really.
Yeah. I mean, your career is something that I feel like a lot of people only see this part of it now. So I'm really curious of like, you're one of the few Black women photographers that we have, right? So what has your journey looked like?
That's so wild to hear that sometimes.
It's
like, wow.
True.
Yeah, there's not very many of us that are working on the larger. I mean, there's a lot of Black women photographers.
Yes, but I mean
that are
your
working
scale.
on this scale. Yeah, it's actually quite wild when I think about it. But my journey has been really interesting. Like, I really am truly a woman who's like a Jack or Jill, I guess, of all trades. You know, I think when it comes to my career, I get asked this a lot, like what do I need to do, or how did you do it? I really don't even know.
Oh, that's such a large question.
It's such a large question because, yeah, it's such a large question. I have always had an interest in like photography and imagery, art in general, and I don't really know. This question is always kind of gets me stumped.
Yeah. Why do you feel like it stumps you?
Because everything happens so fast.
Fair.
You know?
Yeah.
And I remember moving to New York. I moved to New York back in 2013 or 2014. I worked so many jobs. I've worked for a lot of the fashion magazines. I've worked for a lot of the beauty brands. I've done so many things, and I think all of those experiences, like, collectively, I don't know. One day I just woke up, Wale, and I was like, I can't work these jobs. I can't work corporate anymore. I just quit, and I just went for it.
Wow.
And somehow it's just been unfolding, and I can't even fully articulate.
Yeah. Do you feel like you've had enough time to sit in it?
No.
Okay.
Because things are going so fast all the time.
Right.
You know, as of recently, it's my first time really taking a break a couple months ago, and I actually spent time at home for about 2 months. The first time I've ever done that in the past couple of years.
Yeah.
So
what does sitting in it look like for you?
It's interesting.
Does it feel uncomfortable?
At first. I've learned over the past couple months that it's okay to take a break. But initially it was extremely uncomfortable because I'm so used to moving around. I'm used to always being busy, traveling a lot. Usually I'm at home like 5 days out the month, which is nuts.
That is a short amount of time.
I know, it's crazy. So in the beginning, you know, it was tough because, like I said, I'm used to moving around, and I always, unfortunately, I think we live in a society, especially with social media, where you feel like you have to be constantly moving, shaking, hustling, do whatever you have to do. And that moment that you get that stillness, you feel like you aren't doing anything. You feel like you aren't being productive. You feel like you're losing relevance. You're falling behind. And so I had that weird negative self-talk in the beginning, which is crazy to say now because I totally have a different viewpoint.
But I mean, it took you taking a step back and like spending time with yourself in order to find that. But it's so true. If we're not working towards the next thing or like getting bigger or doing something like more extreme, then no one's going to see us and our work as, I think, good in a lot of different ways.
Yeah. So that's how I was feeling. But now I totally have a different relationship with that. And I appreciate the downtime and going to continue to make sure I factor that into my life moving forward.
Yeah. Do you feel like you had to maybe implement certain things in order to be able to work as much as you did? Like maybe a mental or a spiritual practice that kind of helped ground you while moving so quickly all the time?
I think in the moments where I was or have been moving at the pace that I've been moving, and things really just kind of being like on the up and up, like on a constant level. I think for me, I'm very introspective. I talk to myself a lot.
Same.
And I think what was helpful for me, what has been helpful for me, is just like reiterating to myself that like I deserve the opportunities, I deserve to be in the spaces, like I worked hard, and kind of validating, is that a word? Myself and my creativity and just pushing myself. Yeah. And then as far as spiritually, I'm not necessarily a religious person necessarily, but definitely believe in God, and I'm highly spiritual in the sense that like I believe that whatever is meant for me is meant for me. I feel like my life is already written. It's just unfolding. It's already been predetermined. I'm just living throughout it each day. And I feel like I have a strong connection to the universe and what's going on around me. And I feel like, you know, I do write a lot of things down, and I don't know, like things they just flow.
No, that's really beautiful. And I feel like it seems like you make an intentional practice to validate yourself and to affirm yourself in maybe spaces that maybe won't do that. Has that ever been a challenge for you of like, oh, these people don't really see me, right? I need to be able to ground myself in who I am. Yeah,
I've definitely had a few experiences where I'm just like, oof, what's happening? But for the most part, you know, I think in many of the spaces that I have been in, it's been pretty welcoming for the most part. I think, yeah, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, which is a positive experience, that's for sure. But it seems like you also know that there's also spaces that haven't been, and you've been able to ground yourself and validate yourself so that you didn't need specific things from them.
There's definitely been a few moments where I'm like, you guys
I feel like you're thinking about them now.
Yeah, like why is this being like, you know? But all in all, you know, I really try to take every experience just as a learning experience, good or bad. And my mom is always commending me, like, I always find the silver lining in absolutely everything. So yeah, you know.
Absolutely. And like, I mean, I feel like I'm asking this question, but I maybe know the answer already. But, you know, what was talking about like mental health and validation and affirming yourself like growing up?
Okay. Well, I think I've always kind of had a strong sense of what self-validation kind of looks like because my parents always kind of instilled that in me. You know, my parents are very, I grew up only child and very different from my parents. Like my parents are very like highly analytical. Like my mom's a doctor. My dad is an engineer. They're very like type A. And then I come around, floating around, just like, oh, flowers, pretty rainbows, butterflies. You know, they're like, who is this child? Like, what is this? But I think growing up, like my parents always handled me with a lot of care and always let me show up the way that I wanted to show up. Whether, you know, I always was into alternative things like, you know, dressing and however I wanted to dress, or you know, if I wanted to play an instrument, my parents cultivated that. If I wanted to draw pictures or take do photography or whatever, my parents were always really supportive and always let me know that like you can do whatever you want to do, you know, as long as you do it well, you know. And they always had a high expectation for me to like excel, you know, above and beyond at anything that I did. And they always told me like you can do whatever you want, like so I think the self-talk that I've always had within myself has always been like on a positive side for the most part.
Do you feel like those words that they shared with you when you were younger still impact you today?
Oh, of course. Yeah. And they still tell me the same things today, you know, which is really nice.
I mean, it's hard not to be honest.
Oh.
Just saying.
Oh, thanks.
It's hard not to. No, that's really beautiful.
Yeah, they still show love and tell me how proud they are. And, yeah.
And would you say that you kind of reiterate that to yourself as well too? Are you in the space of feeling really proud of you?
I am. I think most recently taking the break that I really needed has been able to allow me to process things a bit more because like I said, I was for the longest like I've really just been on the go. Right. But I think the younger me would look at me now and be like, she's so cool. Yeah. So I feel good. I feel like I still have a lot of things that I want to achieve. But yeah, I'm proud.
So I mean, it seems like you've tried a lot of different artistic things, but you've known that being a creative is something that you wanted to pursue. What has photography meant to you in your life?
Oh wow. Photography for me is like it's so ingrained in my mind, honestly. Just anything visual, it's just so ingrained in who I am. It's just really, it gives me, especially now with like the world being all, everything is so weird. It's really just a retreat.
It's so weird.
It's so weird. Like just I don't even know what's going on anymore. But it's really, I think my photography is like kind of like a retreat from all of like things that are going on around me. And it really allows me to like express myself and to challenge myself also because doing photo shoots is hard, girl.
I can only imagine. I've only seen the products and they're beautiful, but I know there's a lot of a lot of movement and a lot of steps to get there.
A lot of movement. It's a lot of being, what I like to say, just being on. Like, you know, it's challenging. It requires a lot of brain power. You know, you got to think of things, concepts. But then when it boils down to the shoot, I think people think, oh, you just take pictures, that's fun. No, this shit is physically exhausting, strenuous. Right. It's hard, you know. And
you also edit your pictures as well, too.
I do. And then doing that. And then also, you know, when I'm on these shoots, most times I'm on a shoot with like 40 to 50 people on set. And all at once,
they're talking to you.
They're like, Adrienne, what do we do? And it's just like everything coming to you at one time. So for me, it's like a retreat from things, but then it's also a way for me to like additionally challenge myself. And then it's also a way for me, it's been a way for me indirectly to like build my confidence, because like I said, I'm interfacing with so many different people. Like, you know me, I'm at home. Right. I'm very, you know, I'm very much an introvert. So it allows me to really like step out of that and lean more into being like extroverted. So we love that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I couldn't imagine having to work with so many people at one time, all the time, which to me, I think shows why you value silence a lot and just kind of time by yourself to recharge, but also to not have to be on all the time. So how do you recharge?
How do I recharge? I think I love music. Like, music is like my end all be all. I wake up listening to music. I go to sleep listening to music. I collect music, as you know. I think just having alone time is like really, really, really important to me. And in that alone time, in those quiet moments that I'm by myself, which are actually not so quiet because I'm always listening to music.
Well, I guess not interacting with people. So
Yeah. Like music, I listen to a lot of music, which is where I've kind of been like getting inspiration from recently. I used to watch a lot of movies.
Okay. Any movies in particular, or just movies in general?
Just films in general. But now I haven't like touched TV or anything, and I couldn't even tell you when.
Wow. Yeah, that's like unheard of.
Yeah, I know. It's so strange. But yeah, I think the best way is really just having that alone time, the time if I can really think, and listening to music. Like, I like a lot of jazz and things like that. That really helps open my creative brain to different avenues.
Yeah. So it sounds like your grounding practice is also your creative practice as well.
I'm just creative all around.
Yeah. I think it's rare to see
like
in
24/7.
A lot. Yeah, it's rare to see, because I think people sometimes separate it. I'll speak for myself. I usually kind of separate it in my mind, where I'm like, oh, like your mental health practice and your grounding practice is this thing, and then your creative practice is something completely different. But I mean, knowing you outside of here too, I think the way that you see the world is from a creative perspective.
Yeah, for sure. And then another way too is like outside of the time I spend alone, my mom is like really important to me. We talk on a daily basis, and she helps me through a lot of things. And then my friends, you know, I think recently, since I've been able to be home, it takes some time. I've been able to reconnect and work on building more friendships. So that's been also a good thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think community is so important, right? Especially if you are working in a space where you're not interacting with people in your community all the time. Being able to kind of spend time with them and pour into them and not have to be on and just be you with the people that you trust is definitely grounding.
Yeah.
For sure. Something that I was thinking about was what you said about your parents and how supportive they've been of you exploring different things throughout your life. I'm wondering, what is some advice or words to think about that someone whose parents may not be as supportive of their creative pursuits, what's something you would share with them?
Something I would share with them is to... It's a little cliche, but like...
That's okay.
Believe in yourself, keep going. Like, keep doing what you love, and also understand that, like, it takes time. Everything takes time. I don't know how many jobs and things I've did before I got to this point, but like, everything takes time. So take time, be kind, be gentle with yourself. Like, if your family isn't supporting you, I'm sure your friends are like riding with what you do or whatever. Like, just lean into it and continue to do what you love, whatever makes you happy. And I think that's what I would say. It sounds so cliche.
It's not cliche. Sometimes we just need to hear it from somebody else.
Yeah. But
I mean, that felt inspiring to me.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
For sure.
But yeah, like, just keep going and be patient and keep challenging yourself. And not everyone, especially when you're creative, or whenever you have an idea, like, not everyone is going to see the full picture. 80% of the times, actually, no one's going to get it. But it's like, as long as you have a clear view of what you want to do, and, you know, you're trying to figure out how to do it, like, that's fine. But when the puzzle pieces all mesh together and it's all complete, then people will see the picture and they'll be like, oh, that's what you were trying to do, you know? So it's just like, just stick to it.
Yeah. No, yeah. Again, I think that sometimes we just need to hear maybe we've heard this before, but sometimes having someone else say it kind of really grounds us and gives us a different perspective in viewing the world. And I mean, I think your career and your journey is definitely an example of what it is to keep trying and to keep going despite what people tell you or what the world tells you or how they view you, just to keep doing it.
Yeah, I think that's important. Because also, like, when I was starting out, I mean, my parents, they knew what I loved to do, but then they were also just like, are you getting paid for that? You know?
Where is this going to go?
Like, where is this going? Because you need to get a job, you know? And I think for a while, like, although they knew I was creative and they supported, they also were like, they didn't get it all the way. So sometimes, you know, I mean, I even had friends that didn't get it all the way. I mean, there's moments where I was like, what am I doing? But you just stick to it.
Yeah. No, I think doubt makes a lot of sense. Like, I think we all have a specific view of what a good career looks like and like what specific steps to take in order to get to those points. Because, for instance, like, if you just did the gallery in New York, that would have been great. Everyone would be like, wow, you did a gallery in the museum. That's awesome. That's amazing. You didn't have to do the book. I mean, I'm glad you did. But you didn't have to. People have been like, okay, that's nice. But you took it one step further and were like, no, I want to go ahead and pursue this, right? Even if people were like, I don't know if I want to see it in a book, right? You didn't let that stop you. And then you created this really beautiful thing.
Thanks.
So I think that, you know, sitting with you has definitely made me look at my own creative practice and how I view the world. And I hope those that listen can take something away from this today, too.
I hope so, too.
Thanks for coming.
Oh, thank you for having me. Yes, we love.